Today we're talking about 5 rookies that I am obnoxiously low on. All right. How do we define that? I looked at my rankings, the rankings I've done for your rookie drafts, and then I looked at ECR, Expert Consensus Rankings. Fantasy Pros gathers everyone's rookie rankings from the industry, and then I looked at dudes that I am obnoxiously low on. So the guys that I am the lowest on relative to all my other rankings, relative to ECR, okay? And I did this exact video for 5 guys that I'm obnoxiously high on a week ago. It was all good on Tuesday a week ago. So go watch that video from last week. A lot of you guys enjoyed that one. That'll be linked down below. So we're going to get right into the video right after we tuck our shirts in, of course. Bang. Now, it should come as no surprise to you guys that the very first player on this list for me is the Texas wide receiver, No, it's not Adonai Mitchell. It's Xavier Worthy, okay? I have him ranked as my 23rd overall player, which puts him at the end of the second round. So that's like the 210, 211, 212-ish area. According to ECR right now, he is the 11th overall player, the 111. Okay, you got an end of the first round pick. You have to use it on Xavier Worthy. That is a 12-spot difference. That is, rookie drafts are 4 rounds, okay? And the players that you really know about are 3 rounds. That is a huge difference, and it is my biggest difference. Now, I wanted to go back and watch Xavier Worthy's tape again before I made this video just to make sure that I wasn't out of my fucking mind. I will say I came away liking him a little bit more than I had previously in the first time I watched the film, but I'm still not sold on him being worthy of a first-round pick in the NFL draft. I think he can have the upside of a guy like Jameson Williams for sure. And do we even know what that upside is right now? That is why I say him, right? Jameson Williams got picked really early, but he has not lived up to the upside of where he was drafted in the NFL draft. And I want to dive into the tape and talk about where I see the problems with Xavier Worthy. You guys love when I go into the tape, so I'm going to continue to do that and sprinkle it in throughout my videos, because in Dynasty, especially in this industry, pretty much all you get is people talking about analytics and people just recycling the same yards per route run argument and breakout age and college dominator, and it's insufferable. It really, really is. So I want to bring a different angle, some numbers, some film, just give you my opinion of why Worthy just ain't worthy. So we're going to dive into the Texas game versus Alabama this year. And as always, this film, the All-22 film, is brought to you by dynastynerds.com. This is a paid membership. You got to pay for their membership. That gets you access to the prospect film room. But in my opinion, if you're someone who's obviously in my situation, this is extremely worth it, unlike Xavier Worthy. I'm just going to continue to fucking use that terrible joke. I'm sorry. Okay. So where do we want to start? The first thing I noticed, like the first problem I have with Xavier Worthy is like, he is small. He's really, 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 really small. I think he weighed in at like 165 pounds or something at the combine, which is red flag number 1, right? And I'm not someone who's just going to write you off because of that, but he is very, very small, okay? So that is a concern. Like, yes, we've had players that are extremely skinny. Devontez Smith, who's a little bit taller, had Tank Dell last year, that have, you know, gotten the job done. But more often than not, these types of players are not going to be the ones that become outliers and are the ones that really like break out. Okay, so that's the problem. And the problem with that is his ability in man press coverage, like when he gets pressed at the line of scrimmage, right? You give a guy who runs a 4-2-1 space and cushion and time to like get that speed up, there are plenty of plays in this Texas offense where he just absolutely blows by the defender. But when you're playing against Alabama, you're going to be lined up against guys like Kool-Aid McKinstry, right, who is probably a first-round pick in the NFL draft. And that's a lot of the dudes that you're going to end up playing against in the NFL, all right? So here is, we're 10 seconds into this film. We got Xavier Worthy up here against Kool-Aid McKinstry one-on-one. He's got press coverage, man right on him. He has trouble gaining any sort of separation there. He basically like shakes his head and then makes a direct beeline down this way. Boom, right here. Boom. Like, watch this. He just like shakes his head and then goes almost literally parallel to the line of scrimmage. Kool-Aid ain't having none of it. You can use your hands within the first few yards of the line of scrimmage. Just no separation. There's nowhere that his quarterback can go with the ball. Another theme of this will be that Quinn Ewers fucking stinks. I don't know how many times I could say that in these videos, but that's play number 1. You know, this just happens at the line of scrimmage where he needs to get to a spot and he would rather just try to run there directly. Now, this is on the same drive, just they're further down the field. Top of the screen, it's him versus, I believe this is Kool-Aid again. So this is a run play, you'll notice, but the cornerback, listen, this is the difference between watching film, I think, and where stuff like this with context helps is, yes, it's a run play, so nothing matters in the box score, and it doesn't really matter as far as the route is run, but the cornerback doesn't look, he's not looking as if it's a run play. So I think you can judge the route based off of this. There's very little separation anywhere. Had this been a back shoulder fade or something like that, would have never worked. A little bit later in the game. Now, I will say Xavier Worthy actually ended up having a good game statistically. Probably like 3 catches, but he had one that went really, really deep for a touchdown, which was, pretty beautifully thrown ball and a beautiful catch. And that's what he does offer to the game. But I don't think he'll ever develop into like a high possession wide receiver, especially at his size, which is why I hesitate to use a first-round pick on this dude. All right, so he's down here. Again, his package is like, it feels like his entire press package is just doing like the 6 head fakes in a row and trying to beat his guy, but that didn't work at all. So he's running a deep route down there, and there's just absolutely no separation. He almost does a good job down here, right at like the 10-yard line, where he shoves off the cornerback and gains a little bit of separation, but there's absolutely nothing there for him. And if a safety plays over the top, he doesn't come down with that ball, just FYI. But if the safety's playing over the top, he's also not a great contested catch guy. He's good at tracking the ball in the air, but his contested catch rate is, I think it was like 35% last year. It was ranked very low amongst the prospects in this class right now. So if he can't gain really good separation to the point where he's like clearly seeing the ball into his body, he's not coming down with the ball. A few plays later at the end of the game, the film actually cuts off here. I'm not sure why they did this, but just watch the play. It's Kool-Aid again, just no separation whatsoever. Let's jump into some Washington film here. We got Worthy all the way on the bottom of the screen here, has a ton of cushion. Okay, so if he wants to use his speed, he can. Just watch in real time. He runs a comeback route. Quarterback throws it his way. He doesn't come up with it. He's not a good contested catch receiver. Now, the cornerback's playing speed here. You see him, he turns the hips there, and that's where, like, this massive stride here is telling the cornerback and giving the cornerback time to, like, readjust to the route. Like, look how fucking wide is it. It's almost 3 yards. He takes a really long time to turn his entire body around on that comeback route, and that's why the cornerback has time. Like, you're playing against a 4-2-1 speed guy. Cornerback turns around and then immediately clamps down on him. Like, watch like Xavier Worthy's body, how long it takes to actually like face back to the quarterback. Like, by the time he's turned around, he's taken like 9 steps and given the cornerback time to get back to him, which is why he couldn't really get back to the ball that the cornerback threw. Like, sometimes you see wide receivers take like 5 or 6 steps in order to like stop their stride, which wasn't the problem here, but it was like Worthy's ability to turn his body around back to the ball, which gave the cornerback so much time to get. Like, sometimes you could see like he stops. A lot of times they will start here and then take like 5 steps before they can really stop their full momentum, which is not a problem for him. He's good at changing his body speed like at full speed, or changing his direction at full speed, but turning around was a problem for him. And one of the last things that I wanted to kind of bring up was the fact that I kind of brought it up before, where it's like his move off the line of scrimmage is this like head fake where he jumps back and forth like 9 times to try to get separation. He does that out in space as well. Like, that's one of his go-to moves, and that could work if you're really quick twitch and you're really fast like he is. So it does work at sometimes, but I feel like a lot of the times when he runs his routes, he's doing too much. Like, watch this route. Like he did gain separation there, but I don't think that works against an NFL cornerback. Like look how many direction changes he has. That looks like one of those like fake TikTok videos where like someone pretends to fake out their friend and they like go back and forth 7 times. If you know what I'm talking about. But like watch how many direction changes he has. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 direction changes within a 5-yard span. Like I just don't know what good that does for any NFL offense or who that actually works against at the next level. 5 direction changes. Like that just slows you down. That kills the speed that you had. The safety chose to go that way. Had he gone this way, it's cookies. And this is something that I saw a few times on film. And again, sometimes it creates separation. I just feel like it's kind of weird and bad technique. Like here he is. One thing that I've noticed that they use that exploited defenses really, really well is putting Xavier Worthy in motion before the play because he gets almost like a running start, kind of how like the Dolphins were this year with Tyreek Hill, where it was just like an insane advantage to have Tyreek Hill in motion as the play is starting. Here's Worthy out there. He gets his head start, but then he's got to go back this way. And again, like I just feel like he's doing a lot. And I feel like the amount of motion that he's using like causes him to turn around so slowly. And literally that's the very next play. Like look again, watch this route. Like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He's like making 6 moves at a time. Like what are we doing? Getting jumpy here. Like I kind of just feel like if he plays to the outside and breaks in, he's open. And he's turned around quick enough to see the ball from the quarterback where, like, the ball's already like over here by the time he turns his body around because he had to make 6 jab steps. So that's my take on Xavier Worthy. I think he'll be a good role player at the next level. I don't think we should start drafting him in the top 10 of rookie drafts. I don't think an NFL team should use a first-round pick on him. He's a field stretcher for sure. He is fucking fast as shit. We have seen that not translate at the NFL level to like a real good, useful wide receiver most of the time. He is super undersized. He has trouble against press coverage. He doesn't have a very refined skill set. He was someone that broke out really early and then really didn't improve. I think that's like one of my biggest takeaways is a lot of these players that we fall in love with that break out as a freshman when they're wildly fast and wildly talented. You talk about like the Marvin Mims types. They don't improve as the years go by because they've relied so much on their speed and athleticism, right? And that doesn't go anywhere. But when you don't refine your route tree, you don't define the technical part of the game, you're usually capped at the next level. And that's what I think is going to happen with Xavier Worthy. The next guy up on this list is Jaylen Wright, the running back from Tennessee. Now, I will say he's got a lot going for him in terms of like his prospect profile. He's 5'11", 210, so he's got real NFL running back size. He ran a 4.38. He is fast as shit, which should be to no one's surprise. Like the best part of his game is his explosive ability. He is constantly ripping off huge runs, 10, 20, 30, 40-yard runs. They're just sprinkled, littered throughout his entire game. And he's 20 years old right now. He'll be 21 in a month or so. By the time the draft actually happens, he'll be 21, but he's relatively young, which is the case for a lot of these running backs in this class. Now, again, he kind of falls into that category for me. Big-time athlete, very similar to the Marshawn Lloyd, Trey Benson builds, where in specific spot starts, they could have really high upside games. They can even have high upside year campaigns at a time, right? The Miles Sanders, the DeAndre Swift types. Trey Benson, big, 4.39 40. Explosive plays. Same thing with Marshawn Lloyd. Jaylen Wright kind of falls into this category where the athleticism overshadows like the bad vision a lot of the time, and a lot of plays that I think at the NFL level, coaches are going to ask him to gain the 3, 4, 6 yards that are there when he is so explosive that he's always trying to hit the home run. And that is kind of the problem I see with Jaylen Wright is, again, a lot of those times, like those running backs who don't have the vision like a Blake Corum does, who has immaculate vision and immaculate cutback ability, they tend to teeter out at the next level or become like, I'm not going to lie to you, Jaylen Wright, so I have 2 comps for him. I think a good, reasonable comp would be like Jerome Ford. When I saw Jaylen Wright play, one of my first comps that popped out to me was Justice Hill. Now, most of y'all might not have been into like Dynasty or like rookie prospects when Justice Hill came around, he was cool as fuck. He was fast as shit. He played with Chris Carson over at Oklahoma State. Justice Hill was a pretty sick prospect and the same kind of on-par athleticism as Jaylen Wright. But I think Justice Hill became Justice Hill because of some of the downsides that he presented in his game. And we're going to dive into them right now. All right, so we playing against South Carolina here. Now he gets a simple handoff up the middle where the play is for sure designed to go up the middle here. Now he gets the handoff, and his first one, he got some skinny-ass legs. I don't know if he's 210. He's got some, his first instinct, of course, is to bop outside immediately. I think there's a world where you start to see this tight end who is swinging, fullback, whatever, swinging this way to block the edge here. You're starting to see holes open up in the middle where he even stops to look at them. I think he sees the leverage here, so he says, you know what, I'm going to bounce it outside. But there is still definitely a hole right here where he could have got 4 or 5 yards. He goes to bounce it outside, and, of course, that just does not work in the SEC, let alone the NFL. And, again, these are the types of plays that we start to see all the time. Like, you're here, if you're a bigger back in the NFL, or if you're an NFL back, a lot of times you're just going to be asked to get the yards that are given to you rather than throw it outside. Now we have a play here. And this is one that I feel like is a perfect example of like college to the NFL. Okay, so he gets the hand up the middle. His lead blocker hits the lead guy right away. He has very little patience as a runner. Again, you could see his instinct is immediately to cut it right outside, not try to get a few here, not try to get a few here. The other problem with this play, I think, as it relates to playing against lower level competition that aren't NFL players, these two right here should be setting the edge. One of them should always be containing the outside. And if that's the case, he goes nowhere here. And that doesn't happen at the NFL level. His first move, again, is to cut it outside. Both of these guys are like, just watch it in real time. Again, he gains 15. So this is also some of the stuff that happens when you have Jaylen Wright's athleticism. Like, you're going to make big plays sometimes. I just worry that his first instinct so often is to just go cut outside without even like really seeing what's out there. When there's absolutely a world where he's a little bit patient here and then cuts it up here or just goes up the middle for 4 or 5 yards. Again, he makes a big play. But in the real world, these two are not crashing on inside the middle. One of them is playing contain, and one of them is going to be able to stop him, not trying to beat a guy who has a 4.39 speed after you fucking misread the play. That doesn't really happen in the NFL. So, yes, he gets 15 out of it, but I think at the next level, that's a negative play again. All right, he's running against Kentucky here. And here's just another example of kind of what I'm saying, where I think more disciplined defenders will offset a lot of the big plays that he makes. You could see that this linebacker, right off the rip, his first step is outside. His responsibility is to set the edge here, okay? Jaylen Wright, like, that is going to be a hole that opens up. You could see how large that hole is about to be. Rather than taking it and trying to blast through, he does bounce it outside, and the guy who's supposed to be setting the edge jumps inside too. I just don't think that happens at the next level. And now he's able to make a really nice one cut, bounces it outside, gets more yardage. Like, how often do you see NFL running backs live on those types of runs? It just doesn't happen often. We don't see running backs that sustain a long career living off those types of plays, just bouncing it outside consistently, unless you have like Saquon Barkley's build and athleticism. Got to play about a minute later, I think. So he gets his handoff up the middle. Now he's faced with a choice here where he's kind of sitting straight up, and it's, you know, take the hole that's here that's given to me. right here. And it's not like this guy doesn't have leverage one way or the other. So I don't see why we wouldn't bounce this way. This guy's got 2 blockers on him. But instead, as you could probably guess, he decides not to hit this hole here. The fuck is going on outside my window? And he bounces it that way and gets 2 yards or whatnot. He just does not, he's not a good runner up the middle, man. We'll show one last point just to hammer the sheesh home. Playing against Texas A&M. All right, so it's a very soft front. You've got 3 linemen. You have a tight end coming in to block. He gets his hand off. A little bit of patience. You'll start to see holes opening up that he could probably wiggle through. But instead, his very first move, again, is to go parallel to the line of scrimmage outside. And he realizes, oh, this guy actually set the edge for once. So when guys actually set the edge, do their job, stay in place, he's got nowhere to go. Now he's got to cut it back, and he gets a yard. Now, is there any telling that maybe he gets less yards or more yards going this way? I don't really know. I'm just saying it becomes a red flag when I start to see that, like, so many of your runs start with you wanting to go parallel to the line of scrimmage because NFL defenders get cut from teams when they do not. Set thy edge. Now, again, though, I got to give him his flowers. Like, if you look at the play before this one, like directly before, it's almost the same thing, but it works for him. And this is what's going to happen when you have 4.39 fucking speed. You're going to make those plays. But I worry about the sustainability of a player that relies on those. It's almost like the fucking Xavier Worthy of running backs, man. Where he gets his handoff up the middle. Now, realistically, there's nowhere for him to go because this linebacker beats the offensive lineman right away. He cuts outside and makes the play. Beats this edge guy to the outside again. It's just so much of his game, though. He's not overly elusive whatsoever. He picks a spot to get to, and he gets to that spot faster than the guys he's playing against. That's how I would label his elusiveness, whatever the fuck you call it. So Jaylen Wright is number 2 on this list. I'll go through the other 3 a little bit quicker. Otherwise, we'll probably be here all fucking day. Third on this list is Roman Wilson. He is the wide receiver out of Michigan, and I have him, I believe, 7 spots lower than ECR. Now, this feels like he's going to be 23 years old very, very, very soon. He's a guy that I just don't feel like has a ton of nuance in his routes. He's like athletic and explosive, but I don't think he's a very good route runner. I mean, he's been in college for quite a while. He can't fly. He's got very, very good long speed. He's very physical. It feels like I was watching him play and like he was in a fight every other fucking play. But I don't think he was asked to create separation once at Michigan outside of just running really fast across the field, which concerns me. He is kind of like man with the ball in his hands. He's as a contested catch guy. I think what happened with Roman Wilson is he'd be going a lot lower in ECR. I have him 28th overall, so like 304, 305. He's 22 at the 210 right now, according to ECR. Most of this for sure is just echo chamber of guys that are in the Dynasty world go to the Senior Bowl and they saw Roman Wilson perform at the Senior Bowl and kind of like lost their shit. But he's a dude. He didn't really do anything in his first 3 years at Michigan. Finally had like a decent year this year as McCarthy's number 1. And people saw him play in person and then were like, oh, he's legit, even though pretty much everything I've seen, numbers, tape, kind of point to him being just like a very mid player at the next level. His yards per out run versus man in zone are middle of the pack. Broken tackle plus missed tackles forced per reception, awful. He never makes the big plays. He never makes the plays after the catch. I'm sure you could show me one highlight of him making a guy miss one time, but he does not do it consistently. Yards after catch per reception, 4.6 is bad. His catch and traffic rate, 37%, not great. Yeah, just a very, very mid profile to me where it doesn't really feel like a sleeper that I'm trying to hit on. I think he could be Darius Slayton, Kenny Stills maybe, I see a lot of like Dante Pettis here, to be honest with you. But he's another guy on this list. We have a few guys that I have tied with like 3 spots or 6 spots below ECR. Roman Wilson was one of them. Bucky Irving was another one who I've been really, really low on throughout the entire process. Had this video been made a month ago, the gap would have been even bigger, but people, I think, watched his combine and then came down on him a little bit. My problem with Bucky is that he's just not even close to a 3-down back. He's a good pass catching back, a very good pass catching back, very similar to Kenneth Gainwell, but he is very small. He is 5'9", 192, 17th percentile BMI, and he runs a 4.55 40. So, like, yeah, you could be kind of small if you want to be Devon Achane, cool, but run a fucking 4.35 or something like that. 4.55 at 192 pounds, 27th percentile weight adjusted speed score, 7th percentile burst score. I get it. He's elusive. He made a lot of guys miss. When you look at that fucking offense, everything was so spread out. It was like 3 guys on the line of scrimmage. He's making big plays because there's not a defender within 17 yards of him. So Bucky's a guy that, like, the numbers are there for him from college, but he's too small. He'd be too much of an outlier. He's not very athletic. I remember watching him and being like, he's fucking fake fast. Like, he has all these big plays, but like never once did I feel like he popped off the screen in terms of his burst or his acceleration or his speed. And then he went to the combine and in my opinion, disappointed a lot of people. Not me, because, but you were disappointed. I got 2 more guys we'll rattle off quick, all right? So you'll get 5 and 6, and I got to be transparent with you here because there's a guy on this list that I don't even feel comfortable saying because I feel like I'm not even really that low on him, but he numbers wise, when we do the calculations, he is on this list. And I don't want to put it on record that I hate him because I really, really don't. It's Troy Franklin of Oregon. I have him ranked 19th overall. So he's at the 207. He's a mid-second round pick for me. In ECR, he's the 10. So we're talking about the 110 overall, okay? That feels a little bit crazy to me because that would mean that you get, the top 3 wide receivers everybody knows. Then you have the 3 quarterbacks that everybody knows. Brock Bowers, now you're at the 107. If J.J. McCarthy goes in the first 12 picks, which it seems like he certainly is, you're taking him over Troy Franklin. So now we're down at the 108, 109, or even lower. We're down at the 109 after McCarthy goes in the top 12. And now it's like, Troy Franklin, he's not going to be a first-round pick. Now we have A.D. Mitchell, Brian Thomas are almost for sure going to be first-round players. So, like, how are you going to take Troy Franklin over those guys? And I think you could argue there are, if Bo Nix goes higher than we imagine, he's probably going over Troy Franklin. So I think realistically there just needs to be a little bit of catch up where like both sides miss or both sides kind of converge there. Like maybe I'm a little bit too low. Maybe I move him up to like the 17th spot and then ECR has him at like 14 or something like that. I'm only like 2 or 3 spots off. So I'm not putting him on record to being on this list, but I will put Tez Walker of UNC on here and then Ray Davis, the running back out of Kentucky. I got no real problems with Ray Davis, which is like the problem I kind of have with him is he's just very, very average. He's like a good running back. He's like Mike Davis, okay? He's like Mike Davis where it's like, he's probably a worse version of Mike Davis. My biggest problem with Ray Davis is he's going to be 25 by the time he steps onto the football field next year, okay? And in Dynasty, like you're a 25-year-old running back, you got to be getting that like second contract already at that point for people to still really want to buy into you. So it kind of feels like even if Ray Davis shows us something where he becomes like Gus Edwards next year, or whatever the case may be, bad example because he's coming off a 13-touchdown season, like by the time anyone's excited about Ray Davis, he's going to be like 27 years old. The story behind him, great. Like he's got a great story. He's someone you want to root for, but you're simply too old. You've been in college for too long. And I just don't think you're that exciting of a player. I think you're fine. I think you can have a role as a running back, but that's not so what we're shooting for in rookie drafts. And the last guy I have on here is Tez Walker, real name, certified brother, Devontez Walker out of UNC. Now, he's going to be 23 years old pretty soon. 6'2", 190, 195, ran a 4.36, like very athletic testing measurables at the combine. He is very long. He's got them long strides for sure. He's like the Walmart version of Brian Thomas. My problem with him is he can be very stiff at times. He has very strong hands, like really, really, really solid on like acrobatic plays that he needs to make and like contested catches. But this man, he cannot separate versus man coverage. Like he's too stiff. His start-stop speed, extremely questionable. When he needs to be agile to run a route, not his specialty, and that shows up in the numbers. His yards per route run number, 2.28, already not a great start, but when you actually look at how it breaks down man versus zone, like I said, I'm watching him, I'm like, he cannot separate versus man coverage. His yards per route run versus zone coverage, 3.24. Versus man coverage, 1.07. His missed tackles forced per reception, amongst the worst in the class, is 0.05 per reception, 2.8 yards after catch per reception. That's a lot to do with the fact that his ADOT was like 18.2 yards downfield, so I won't hold that against him, but that's exactly what he is. He is a pure role player where 35% of his targets were deep downfield, but he is not a separator realistically. Some of the comps that I have for him, so the high end, right? If he hits like his ceiling, his peak, the people, no matter what rookie you talk about, the best version of that comp will be put out there. Like someone in the dynasty space loves him and is like, you're sleeping on him. He's a top 10 receiver, whatever. High end comp for him would be DJ Chark. Okay. Where I think he realistically ends up being is a Chris Conley type, Alec Pierce, MVS with probably better hands, low end like flop comp, a Tyquan Thornton type, where you don't really provide the team with a lot else besides running really fast down the field and going up and getting some tough balls. All right, I will give Tez Walker that he's really good at doing that, but other than that, he's not like a well-rounded technical route runner. He's pretty much off my board, and I have him 6 spots lower than consensus, but it's probably only because people don't even know who he is really, and he's really far down the board for most people just because they don't know. Okay, so that is my list of, I guess, 6 players that I'm obnoxiously low on in rookie drafts this year. Just to recap very quickly, we got Xavier Worthy, Jaylen Wright, Roman Wilson, Bucky Irving, Devontez Walker, Tez Walker, and Ray Davis out of Kentucky. Okay? So if you enjoyed, all I ask is that maybe you share it with a friend. I know you're not going to want to share with your league mates. That's the bad part about this occupation is like if people like my stuff, they don't want to share it because the only people they share it with are people in the leagues. So I guess subscribe if you're new to it. I'll see you tomorrow probably.